Sorry about that. A few connection issues this morning.
No worries at all. Uh, Good morning. It's January 2026. I'm Eric Blank, and this is the Commissioner's weekly meeting. Commissioner Plant, any preliminary matters? Are you ready to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I would vote to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Gelman,
I would also vote to approve the consent agenda.
as would I. 23A-0614R, Mr. Farrell, flashing signals, CDOT.
Thank you. Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Alan Farrell here with Rail and Transit Safety Section to address any discussion on proceedings 23A-0614R and 23A-0615R, which if you're ready, I will now address.
Yep.
On March 3rd, 2023, Longmont, City of Longmont, filed two applications requesting authority to install flashing light signals, gates and bells, and removal of the passive warning signs at two separate crossings. One at the crossing of Gilpin County Road 16, also known as Holland Road at that location, with the tracks of Union Pacific Railroad or UPRR, and the second at the crossing of Gilpin County Road 16, also known as East Portal Road at that location with the tracks of UPRR near the town of Rollinsville, Gilpin County. CDOT stated that it was proposing changes at both crossings because the two-track crossing has a high degree of skew between the roadway and the railroad. The roadway in each case leads to a trail heavily used by walkers, runners, and bikers for exercise. In the case of the crossing at Tolland Road, the road turns from somewhat parallel to perpendicular at the crossing, and in the case of the crossing at East Portal Road, there's poor visibility, particularly at night, and the current crossing is posted with stop signs that are regularly ignored by crossing users. By decisions number C24-0066 and C24-0077 issued February 6, 2024, the Commission deemed both the applications complete and granted the applications. On December 23rd of 2025, CDOT made two filings titled CDOT's First Amendment to the Application in both proceedings. In these filings, CDOT states that the projects were delayed to allow CDOT and UPRR to resolve issues related to UPRR contract language, which issues have now been resolved. In these filings, CDOT states that the projects were delayed to allow CDOT and UPRR to resolve issues. I apologize. As attachments to the filings, UPRR also provided updated cost estimates of railroad work items and railroad crossing circuitry schematic diagrams. Specifically, the filings seek to amend, firstly, the estimated start date of construction to March 1st, 2026, and the estimated completion date of construction to December 31st, 2027. Secondly, the estimated cost of the railroad work items. Thirdly, the schematic diagram of the crossing warning devices. And fourthly, the apportionment of costs between UPRR, Gilpin County, and the federal Section 130 fund as showing revised costs of $614,167 apportioned to the federal Section 130 fund in the case of the Tolland Road crossing, and $553,110 apportioned to the federal Section 130 fund in the case of the East Portal Road crossing. Staff construes these filings as motions requesting the Commission accept the amendments to the applications and modify prior decisions C24-0066 and C24-0067 accordingly. Since CDOT states that both CDOT and UPRR have resolved the contract language issues and provided the attachments to the motions, staff also construes the motions as unopposed, and nor has UPRR made any filing opposing the motions. And if you're ready, I have a recommendation.
That'd be great.
Staff notes pursuant to section 40-6-112, subsection 1, CRS, the Commission may rescind, alter, or amend any decision made by it, and recommends the Commission construe the filings as motions to amend the applications, grant the motions accepting the amendments to the applications, and modify prior decision C24-0066 and C24-0067 accordingly.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
Commissioner Goman,
I also agree.
as do I, and that can be an ABC order granting the motions.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Let's take up the NTP last and jump to proceeding 23AL-0635G. Mr. Sarah, Mr. Davis.
Morning, Commissioners. Today I'm presenting proceeding number 23AL-0635G, which concerns Colorado Natural Gas's advice letter number 133 and the interpretation of Title 40, Article 3.2, Section 104.3, which is the statute that requires gas utilities to eliminate incentives to establish new gas service. This case ultimately presents a narrow legal question. Does Section 104.3 prohibit construction allowances for distribution main extensions, or does it only prohibit allowances for service lines, meters, and other customer connection infrastructure? The ALJ's recommended decision concludes that the statute does prohibit distribution main extension allowances and recommends the Commission require CNG to file a compliant advice letter consistent with that interpretation. CNG filed exceptions, and trial staff Sierra Club and UCA filed responses urging the Commission to deny those exceptions. As a bit of procedural history, this matter began with CNG's advice letter, which proposes tariff revisions to its line extension policies to implement that statute, which it filed under protest. Trial staff filed a protest to the advice letter, contending CNG's revisions didn't fully remove the prohibited incentives and raising concerns that allowances associated with other new customer infrastructure, such as meters and certain regulators, might remain. UCA intervened and Sierra Club later intervened. The Commission suspended the advice letter, set the matter for hearing, and referred it to an ALJ. The case proceeded through testimony and briefing, an evidentiary hearing, and post-hearing statements of position. The ALJ issued the recommended decision late last year. So the statute at issue here is titled, in relevant part, Eliminating Incentives for Gas Service to Properties, Gas Line Extension Allowances. The statute prohibits a utility from providing an applicant an incentive, including a line extension allowance, to establish gas service. It defines line extension allowance as a bundle of costs that include construction allowances for new service lines, meters, and other infrastructure associated with the addition of a new customer to the gas utilities distribution system. In the recommended decision, the ALJ identifies two important areas of agreement. One, the ALJ and all the parties agree that the statute applies to incentives related to service line extensions, and they all agree that the statute doesn't apply to infrastructure upstream of distribution mains. So the dispute comes down to one question, which again is whether allowances for distribution main extensions fall within that statutory prohibition. In the recommended decision, the ALJ applied a conventional plain meaning first approach. He read the statute as a whole, gave words their ordinary meaning in context, and construed provisions harmoniously so that no term was rendered meaningless or superfluous. Turning to the section at issue, the ALJ treats subsection 2A's prohibition, no incentive, including a line extension allowance, as textually expansive. So in other words, line extension allowance is an example of a prohibited incentive, not, as CNG would have it, the exclusive category of prohibited incentives. The ALJ then tied that reading to subsection 2C, which requires each utility to file updated tariffs to remove any incentives, plural, by the date certain, which was the end of 2023. The ALJ reads any incentives and the plural usage as a signal that the General Assembly intended to sweep in all the incentives of the relevant type that were being offered at the time the statute took effect. And because the record showed the affected gas utilities were providing construction allowances for service lines and for distribution main extensions at enactment, the ALJ concludes those are the incentives the statute prohibits. The ALJ also relies heavily on the statutory definition of line extension allowance in subsection 1D, identifying multiple textual clues that the definition is broad rather than cabin to service lines alone. One, it uses includes, signaling an illustrative, non-exhaustive list. Two, it refers to multiple construction allowances, plural. And third, it reaches other infrastructure associated with adding a new customer, which the ALJ construed by reference to dictionary uses and case law construing associated with broadly. Ultimately, in the recommended decision, the ALJ rejected CNG's efforts to narrow the definition via usdem generis, reasoning the canon should not be applied woodenly, and on this text, it would defeat legislative intent and effectively nullify the statute's broader language. The ALJ also rejected CNG's attempt to draw a dispositive line between connecting a customer versus expanding the distribution system, concluding that the single distribution system reference in the definitional clause can't override the broader textual indicators that the statute targets all then existing construction allowance incentives. CNG also raised a number of constitutional concerns with the statute itself. CNG argued that if there's ambiguity in the statute, the commission should adopt CNG's narrower reading, which is just service laterals, to avoid takings and contract clause concerns. The ALJ concluded that the canon of constitutional doubt doesn't alter the outcome here because the statute is not ambiguous. And the ALJ further concluded CNG didn't carry its burden to show that a constitutional concern that would warrant narrowing construction, even if ambiguity existed. The ALJ also addressed the record-based shortcomings in CNG's constitutional theories, including the lack of evidence, quantifying customer decisions attributable specifically to distribution main extension allowances, and concerns about whether CNG established the necessary predicate property interest for a takings theory framed around future investment. So to CNG's exceptions. CNG's exceptions focus on three main categories: the statutory interpretation, limiting principal concerns, and constitutional doubt. CNG argues the statute should be read to prohibit only allowances for service lines, meters, and customer connection infrastructure, not distribution mains. CNG emphasizes the statutory definition of line extension allowances and argues it's written in customer-specific terms, so costs associated with the addition of a new customer to the distribution system. And it shouldn't be construed to prohibit investment in shared distribution infrastructure like mains. CNG also argues that the ALJ effectively used the tariff update deadline provision to define the scope of the substantive prohibition, but that analysis, according to CNG, reverses the proper analytic order. The commission should interpret what subsection 2A prohibits first, rather than inferring scope from a compliance timeline provision. CNG argues that if distribution mains are swept into the prohibition because they're associated with adding a customer, the statute would lack a workable limiting principle and could be extended to other categories of system investments over time. So CNG argues that the proper limiting principle here is the statute's customer-focused framing. CNG also argues that the ALJ's interpretation raises serious takings clause and contracts clause concerns, and that the commission should adopt CNG's narrow interpretation to avoid those concerns. CNG frames its argument around CPCNs, franchise agreements, and the regulated monopoly framework, asserting that limited growth-related investment impairs reasonable expectations and core contractual or property interests. Trial staff, Sierra Club, and UCA all filed responses to those exceptions. The first two argue that the statute is unambiguous and that distribution main extension allowances fall within the prohibited set of incentives. Staff argues that the definition of line extension allowance includes other infrastructure associated with the addition of a new customer, and that a main extension built to serve a new customer is precisely that. It is infrastructure associated with that addition. Staff disputes CNG's customer-specific versus shared infrastructure distinction as extra textual, and it emphasizes the statutory use of the word including to indicate that line extension allowances are an example of prohibited incentives rather than the exclusive category. Sierra Club similarly argues that a main extension allowance is plainly an incentive to establish gas service, and that the statute's purpose is to eliminate financial inducements for new connections. Sierra Club also argues the customer-specific shared distinction that CNG puts forth isn't grounded in the statute. For its part, UCA supports the denial of the exceptions and emphasizes the ALJ's conclusion that the statute is plain, applying interpretive presumptions favoring the public interest. With respect to the question around limiting principle, Sierra Club argues that the Commission shouldn't decide hypothetical upstream applications because the case is limited to the tariff allowances at issue in this proceeding, and the parties already agree upstream equipment isn't implicated. Sierra Club also argues, with respect to the constitutional concerns raised by CNG, that the interpretive canon of constitutional doubt is inapplicable absent statutory ambiguity, and contends that CNG's invocation is conceptually flawed because CNG asserts constitutional concerns even under its preferred interpretation. Trial staff argues that CNG's takings and contract impairment theories fail on the record here, particularly because CNG didn't track customer decisions attributable specifically to the lack of distribution main construction allowances, and didn't quantify a substantial economic impact tied to the disputed part of the statute. UCA likewise emphasizes the public purpose rationale here. The statute doesn't ban new gas service, but it removes incentives to establish such service in furtherance of emissions reduction policy goals. So, to my recommendation, I recommend that you decide that the ALJ, trial staff, and Sierra Club correctly conclude that the statute in question unambiguously prohibits construction allowances for distribution main extensions when those allowances operate as incentives to establish new gas service. The statute broadly bars a utility from providing an applicant an incentive, and then defines line extension allowance to include construction allowances for new service lines, meters, and other infrastructure associated with the addition of a new customer to the gas utilities distribution system. Read as a whole, the text reaches the full suite of new customer inducements that reduce the cost of establishing gas service, and a distribution main extension construction allowance, where it's offered to connect a new property, is precisely such an inducement. As the ALJ understood, this reading accords with general industry usage, and that usage is perhaps unsurprisingly echoed in the Commission's gas rules, particularly Rule 4210, which governs line extension policies and which covers both main extensions and service laterals. CNG's attempt to carve out distribution main extensions by labeling them shared infrastructure is not grounded in the statutory language and would improperly narrow the definitions other infrastructure associated with clause, effectively rewriting the scope of the prohibition. There are two other textual clues that I recommend you highlight in your decision. First, the legislature used the defined term line extension allowances to encompass a set of prohibited construction allowances, including service line extensions. Had it intended for this to only apply to service line extensions, it could have simply declared that construction allowances for new service lines were prohibited. After all, it uses that term, service lines, in the definition, but it used the broader term line extensions to encompass both service lines and other infrastructure associated with the addition of a new customer. And so the term infrastructure, is another clue, as it references larger pieces of a utilities system. This is borne out both by dictionary definitions that agree that infrastructure is a broad term relating to the utilities system. And by using that term, the legislature was including those construction allowances that subsidize the build out of infrastructure for the addition of a new customer. A distribution main extension meets that definition. CNG's exceptions also fail because they depend on extra textual limiting principles that the General Assembly didn't adopt. The statute doesn't distinguish between customer-specific versus system infrastructure. Instead, it turns on whether the utility is providing an incentive and whether the costs fall within the statutory definition of a line extension allowance or an incentive similar to the bundle of incentives in that definition. A main extension built to add a new customer is associated with that customer's addition in the ordinary sense. It's undertaken to provide service to that property, and in many cases is initially sized, located, and funded based on that single connection. By according the phrase associated with a common sense, industry relevant understanding, the Commission can both assure itself that the construction allowances for distribution main extensions are, generally speaking, the type of inducement offered to establish new service at a property, and at the same time elucidate the limiting principle that CNG alleges is absent in this reading. All the parties agree that investments upstream of the main extensions are not ordinarily made to establish new service at a property. Therefore, the statute doesn't reach them. In sum, the Commission should affirm the ALJ's conclusion that the statutory text is clear, and having done so, the Commission should decline to address CNG's constitutional arguments or the canon of constitutional doubt. CNG acknowledges the canon is a tool of last resort used only where a statute is ambiguous. Because the statute is unambiguous, there's no occasion to apply it here. Moreover, CNG asserts that its preferred interpretation is unconstitutional as well, which further underscores why constitutional doubt provides no meaningful interpretive guidance here. The canon is intended to avoid constitutional problems by selecting a plausible, constitutionally sound construction, not to choose between competing reasons that the proponent claims are both constitutionally infirm. So accordingly, I recommend the Commission deny the exceptions and affirm the recommended decision's statutory interpretation.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Goman,
I also agree.
as do I, and that can be an ABC decision upholding the ALJ's recommended decision and including more statutory discussion consistent with your recommendation. Does that give you what you need, Mr. Acera?
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 24A-0547E Public Service Company DSP, Mr. Foreman, Mr. Mendelson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Wyatt Foreman of your Commission Council. I have two issues to present for you today. This is a consolidated proceeding consisting of both Public Service Company of Colorado's Distribution System Plan application and Public Services Virtual Power Plant Plan application. The two decision points for you here. The first concerns a modification of the deadline established in Commission Decision number C25-0903, and the second concerns setting a shortened response time to sweep NRDC's motion for leave to respond in response to Public Services RRR. By decision number C25-0903, issued on December 15th, 2025, the Commission granted the company's applications with modifications, required certain filings, and issued directives for future filings. On January 13th, 2026, Public Service filed an application for rehearing, reargument, or reconsideration, or RRR, of the Commission's decision, in which it asked the Commission to reconsider and adjust several aspects of the decision. Among its requested adjustments is the company's request that the Commission modify the deadline established in the decision, which sets a date by which the company is required to propose a performance-based framework for Type 2 distribution activities. The Commission's decision required the company to file the proposed performance-based framework by February 1st, 2026. The company asked the Commission to adjust the deadline and instead require the filing 60 days after a final Commission decision. It states the adjustment is critical to ensure the framework reflects the Commission's final determinations and provides the company adequate time to develop practical, well-scoped performance metrics that advance Senate Bill 24-218's objectives. Considering the time-sensitive nature of this request and that the Commission will not deliberate the rest of the company's RRR until after the February 1st deadline, Council and advisors believe the Commission should decide whether to adjust this deadline now and recommend modifying the deadline for the company to make the filing to 60 days after a final Commission decision as the company requests. Guidance as to what that filing should contain can be addressed when the Commission considers the substance of the rest of the company's RRR at a subsequent meeting. And I'll pause here for a vote on that issue.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Goman,
I also agree.
as do I.
Thank you. And so the second decision point for you here also involves timing considerations, and that is whether to set a shortened response time to the motion for leave to respond in response to Public Services RRR filed on January 23rd, 2026 by the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project and the Natural Resources Defense Council, or SWEEP NRDC. In the motion, SWEEP NRDC assert Public Services RRR materially misrepresents and mischaracterizes the time-based modeling methodology, which was proposed by SWEEP NRDC and which the Commission directed Public Service to include in its next DSP. SWEEP NRDC therefore seeks leave to respond to the company's RRR pursuant to Commission Rule 1506B and requests the Commission shorten response time to the motion. SWEEP NRDC State Public Service opposes the request for shortened response time and reserves its right to respond to the motion. Council and advisors believe timing considerations weigh in favor of granting the request for shortened response time and recommend setting a deadline for responses to the motion of 5 p.m. on Friday, January 30th, 2026. And the Commission can then address the merits of the motion and any response at a later date. And I'll pause here for a vote here.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman,
I also agree.
as do I. And is there anything else, Mr. Foreman?
I believe that's it.
That can be an ABC decision, granting the request for extension and setting shortened response time. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
25A-0165G, Mr. Fetters, Public Service Company, request to revise depreciation rates for gas utility plant assets.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ian Fetters with y'all's advisory staff. Before you this morning are requests for rehearing, re-argument, or reconsideration, or RRR, in Public Services gas depreciation filing. I'll open with some quick background. On April 11, 2025, Public Service filed its application to revise depreciation rates for gas utility assets and asked for approval of the company's proposed depreciation rates, the proposed treatment of certain gas asset decommissioning funds associated with accelerated depreciation amounts, and deferral of expenses incurred in this proceeding. Trial staff, the Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate, or UCA, and Western Resource Advocates and Sierra Club intervened in this proceeding. Staff in the UCA filed answer testimony and ultimately joined Public Service in filing a settlement agreement in this proceeding, while Western Resource Advocates and Sierra Club did not file testimony or take a position on the settlement. In decision number C-25-0921, issued on December 19th, the Commission denied the settlement and granted in part and denied in part Public Service's initial application. It approved the company's proposed depreciation rates and the deferral of case expenses, denied the request to continue regulatory liability treatment for decommissioning funds, and instead directed the company to establish a trust account for those funds as originally contemplated in the company's 2024 gas rate case 24AL0049G. On January 8th, UCA and staff both filed timely applications for RRR of the initial decision. Both requests involve clarification regarding the accelerated depreciation associated with the creation of the trust. Public Service did not file RRR in this proceeding. We will start with UCA's request, then move on to staff's. UCA's request recalls paragraph 136 of decision number C240778 in the company's 2024 gas rate case. That decision directed the company to, quote, place $15 million per year collected through the depreciation expense as presently calculated and included in the calculation of the test year revenue requirement into a separate trust account. And to offset the loss of free cash flow from that $15 million requirement, it, quote, authorized Public Service to increase the annual depreciation expense used to calculate the annual target revenue requirement by $15 million. In paragraphs 57 and 58 of this decision, the Commission ordered Public Service to establish a trust and to fund the trust with the $15 million plus WACC return in 2025, as was ordered in decision number C240778, with an additional $15 million added annually. UCA seeks clarification of these paragraphs, stating it, quote, believes the Commission authorized increasing the annual depreciation expense by $15 million, but directed the additional $15 million collected to be placed into the trust so that ratepayers are only paying $15 million, as opposed to paying $15 million in depreciation expenses and another $15 million annually to fund the trust, increasing customer costs by $30 million. And I can pause for questions or have a recommendation.
I'd welcome a recommendation.
Advisors recommend confirming UCA's interpretation of those paragraphs. Advisors believe the intention of the commission was to continue allowing the company to recover $15 million of accelerated depreciation expense per year through base rates, and for that same $15 million annually to go into the trust. The $15 million plus WACC return recovered from customers in 2025 will initially fund the trust, and then $15 million recovered from customers in 2026 would go into the trust, $15 million in 2027, and so on, unless modifications are made in a future proceeding.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman,
I also agree.
as do I.
Thank you, commissioners. Now on to staff's request. Staff's R in this proceeding asks the Commission to clarify provisions of paragraph 58 in the Commission's decision, and specifically to, quote, prevent double recovery of decommissioning costs from ratepayers. As discussed earlier, in paragraph 136 of decision number C240778 in the 2024 gas rate case, the Commission directed the company to place $15 million annually in a separate trust account and authorize public service to increase annual depreciation expense to offset the loss of free cash flow. The $15 million of accelerated depreciation expense was reaffirmed in paragraph 58 of the decision in this proceeding. Additionally, paragraphs 48 through 50 of the decision in this proceeding, the Commission accepted the company's proposed depreciation rates to be used as, quote, an acceptable initial starting point in the company's next Phase 1 rate case, which has since been filed. These depreciation rates result in an increase in annual depreciation expense of $11.4 million, largely driven by an increase in net salvage costs of approximately $15.4 million. Staff interprets that the $15 million of accelerated depreciation expense would come from continuing the depreciation expense established in the 2024 gas rate case, which, as discussed earlier regarding UCA's RRR, is an accurate interpretation. However, staff asserts that the approval of the new depreciation rates, in conjunction with the continuation of that $15 million of accelerated depreciation expense, would, quote, effectively double the annual burden on ratepayers for decommissioning costs and could result in unjust double recovery. Staff notes that a calculated decommissioning liability of approximately $1.2 billion over the life of the existing assets resulting from the increase in net salvage costs. It asserts that the accelerated depreciation would effectively double that amount. And I can pause for questions or have a recommendation on this one.
No, we'd welcome a recommendation. Thank you.
Advisors recommend clarifying that the initial decision does approve both the $15 million of accelerated depreciation as originally established in the 2024 gas rate case and the new depreciation rates, which are based in part on the increase in net salvage costs. Advisors disagree with the characterization of this decision as double recovery. The new depreciation rates that were proposed in this proceeding and approved in the initial decision reflect the new depreciation study presented in this proceeding, including updates to engineering lives as well as updates to net salvage costs. The $15 million of accelerated depreciation expense on top of these depreciation rates is related to the Commission's concerns about cash being available for the actual decommissioning of assets when those assets are actually retired. Nothing about the changes in the depreciation study fundamentally alleviates that concern. Additionally, advisors note that while the decision approved the new depreciation rates and required them to be used as an acceptable starting point in the next gas case, the decision also encouraged the company and parties to continue exploring alternative methodologies in future depreciation proceedings and to provide depth to their depreciation analysis in the gas rate case. And as such, though the depreciation study was approved in this proceeding, staff remains free to propose alternative treatments for net salvage costs going forward.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
as do I. Does that give you what you need, Mr. Fetters, to do an ABC decision?
Yes, it does. I think that's all for this case today.
Thank you. Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
26A-0040E, Public Service Company 2024 TEP filing.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Davis of the Commission's advisory staff. Earlier this month, Public Service Company of Colorado filed a brief application seeking to continue its existing transportation electrification plan. And this is to accommodate a joint filing coming later this year of the company's next transportation electrification plan with the upcoming combined demand side management, beneficial electrification, strategic issues, and clean heat plan filing. Public Service, however, is statutorily required to file a TEP every 2 years, no later than May. And so by this application, Public Service seeks to meet that statutory filing deadline, but does not otherwise seek additional funding or changes to its 2024 to 2026 TEP. And as I mentioned, the application is primarily intended to further streamline and coordinate the company's customer programs. At the January 14th weekly meeting, the Commission granted the company's request for a shortened 10-day notice and intervention period. One intervention pleading was timely filed, that one from the Colorado Energy Office, and they expressed support for granting the application. So the application is unopposed and can be considered by the Commission this morning without a hearing, and I can provide a recommendation if you'd like. The decision point is whether to grant the application.
I think we'd welcome the recommendation. I have one other issue to raise, but let's take a vote on the recommendation and then I'll raise that issue. So if you could go to recommendation, that'd be great.
Okay, I recommend that the Commission adopt an ABC order granting the unopposed application.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner
Oh,
Gilman,
agree.
as do I, and that can be an ABC order. So thank you for that, Mr. Davis. One more thing on this one. I think I'd like to consider having a general discussion with you both that summarizes what we like to see out of the company's future filing. Perhaps advisors could pull together all the requests from our prior orders, and we can have just a general conversation on what we'd like to see addressed. We won't prejudge anything, but maybe we could help shape the issues for that future case. After talking to advisors and counsel, I'm thinking we could bring this back on February 18th. So any thoughts on having that conversation, Commissioner Plant?
Yeah, no, I think that would be really helpful. And, I think it would be helpful certainly just for me, but also I think it might reduce the amount of necessary supplemental testimony. So it might speed up the entire process for everybody. So yeah, I would support that.
Commissioner Gilman?
Yeah, I certainly think that would be helpful, especially now as these join together. We're looking at a pretty large
A
filing.
super case.
Yeah, kind of the super customer program focused case, which in a lot of ways is a good thing, but I think it might be helpful to especially lay out, as we've litigated the DSP and the JTS, each of these were kind of their own thing, but help to fulfill a vision of what we understand to be the upcoming system costs, the value of demand flexibility, and really kind of continuing to improve the focus of how we should look at these customer programs and priorities for control of that load and the like. So I think that would be helpful and hopefully just improve success of having a fairly smooth process moving forward by putting together a lot of those pieces that we've seen over those past proceedings to ensure we're kind of directing at least some level of focus on those priorities, given the really significant costs we see coming.
Yeah, instead of trying to do this on supplemental direct, perhaps it would be way more efficient to help shape this early. So perhaps advisors can pull together whatever guidance was in our prior decisions as a basis for that discussion. And if it continues to work for everybody, we'll take this up on the 18th. So thanks. 25M-0012E, Mr. Dalton, new generation, whether it's in the normal course of business or not, public service. You're up, sir.
Good morning. My name is Bill Dalton, staff engineer. Can you hear me?
We can.
Today, I'd like to present proceeding number 25M0012E. This agenda item pertains to the second supplemental 2025 Rule 3205C report filed by Public Service Company of Colorado on December 16th, 2025. Public Service in the second supplemental rule report is seeking commission determination that no CPCN is required for the limited extensions of existing generating units Pruta, Fort Lumpton 1 and 2, Valmont 6 units, currently scheduled for retirement in 2026 until 2028. This request is similar to the request granted for Alamosa 1 and 2 in decision C250826 back in November of 2025. Limited extension of operational life of small existing peaking generation units that historically operate for short periods of time. In support of the requested determination, the company provided a second supplemental report with a joint recommendation by the company's integrated system planning and energy supply and the regulatory team supporting extending the operating life of these generating units until 2028 as a lower cost option to ratepayers. The second supplemental report attachment 3 provides additional details on the request unit extensions, updating your term capacity needs with and without unit life extensions, system reliability benefits these units provide, estimated capital and O&M cost, and alternative considered. In summary, the second supplemental report provides discussion and contributes to the company's near-term capacity, specifically firm dispatchable capacity, collectively 90 megawatts across the company's system. Cost. The companies have provided cost estimates for these limited extensions. Additional capital investments and ongoing O&M will be required to extend the units beyond 2026 retirement dates. Market purchases. The company's commercial operations has evaluated open energy purchase alternatives in a tight Western market serving increased loads impacted by continued delay in timing of new resource development throughout the U.S. West. System reliability. These units continue to provide local reliability and grid stability benefits unique to each unit and location on this system. And in just summary, this request is for determination of short-term extensions of small existing peaking generating units that historically operate for short periods of time.
Mr. Dalton, you're fading in and out. I've lost you. Can you guys hear him?
Yeah,
I think he's concluded his description, but some of it was a bit lost.
Mr. Dalton, could you jump to your recommendation?
Certainly. Staff recommends the commission issue a decision approving the extension of the operational lives of these units through 2028. This extension falls within the normal course of business criteria, and no CPC is required to extend the operating lives of these existing generating units. Fort Lumpton 1 and 2 and Valmont 6, currently scheduled to retirement in 2026.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree.
Commissioner Gellman?
I also agree.
As do I, and that can be an ABC decision approving the request for treatment in the ordinary course of business. So thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Thank you.
Let's go back up to 21A-0141E. Mr. Eden, Ms. McLaughlin, Public Service Company of Colorado, NTP.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Michael Eden with your advisory team. This morning, I'm going to present Public Service Company of Colorado's motion for near-term procurement of resources, or NTP. In the NTP report public service filed on December 5th, the company seeks authorization to pursue a Tier 1 portfolio of 14 generation and storage projects from 9 bidder companies, totaling approximately 4,900 megawatts of nameplate capacity. These 14 projects collectively include 2,700 megawatts of wind generation, 500 megawatts of solar, 600 megawatts of solar plus storage, 300 megawatts of standalone storage, and 200 megawatts of gas generation. The company asserts the vast majority of NTP projects have corresponding tax credit savings that may no longer be available if those projects are procured post NTP. The company argues the NTP can be considered an advancement of resources that otherwise would have been selected in the JTS, or the Just Transition Solicitation, and also the completion of resources needed to reduce carbon emissions by 80% from 2005 levels by 2030. After the company filed its NTP report, the Commission held a 2-day technical workshop where the Commission and parties were able to question the company regarding its NTP portfolio. The parties subsequently filed written responses to the company's NTP motion, and this week, Public Service filed an unopposed motion to reply. Before I get into the substance of the arguments, I'll turn it over to Mr. DeCenzo to address a legal matter.
Mr. DeCenzo.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mitchell DeCenzo of your Commission Counsel. I will briefly present Public Service's unopposed motion for leave to file reply comments and its accompanying reply comments, and then hand it back to advisors. Through decision number C25-0652I, the Commission authorized this NTP process and expressly allowed Public Service to request permission to file reply comments following intervener responses, granted they file a request to reply by January 23rd. Public Service has exercised that option here. The company notes in its notice of technical difficulty filed on Monday that it was unable to submit its e-filings on Friday. It's filing on e-filings on Friday, January 23rd, and that it emailed all parties to let them know of the issues and successfully submitted the filings on Monday, January 26th. Public Service states there is good cause for leave to file reply comments to address new issues raised by interveners and commissioners, including alternative portfolio concepts discussed during the technical conference. The motion is unopposed, and the company requests waiver of remaining response time. In its reply comments, Public Service emphasizes that the proposals in the NTP motion meet the objective of securing as much cost-effective electric generation under construction or placed in service as soon as possible, and the company notes broad support generally from the environmental organizations, independent power producers, trade associations, renewable energy advocates for approving the portfolios. The reply also responds to 2 alternative portfolios that have been raised in this proceeding. First, the chair's concept raised at the technical conference and the alternate portfolio put forward by the state agencies. Public Service states that the chair's concept amounts to a substantial reduction from the nameplate capacity proposed in the NTP portfolio and cautions that no party expressly supports this approach. Public Service agrees with party concerns that this alternative invites potential gamesmanship, delay, and price increases in later solicitations. Regarding the state agency's alternate portfolio, Public Service states that it removes roughly 1,500 megawatts of wind relative to the NTP portfolio, which the company views as a mistake given the waning opportunity for tax advantage wind capacity and the role those projects play in delivering tax credit savings. Public Service's view, reducing the portfolio in either manner would heighten resource adequacy risks and undermine progress towards state policy goals at the wrong time. The company also addresses several miscellaneous issues that include additional topics raised in party comments that fall outside of the core portfolio issues. These include clarifications on bid-specific concerns, such as the designation of certain bids as failed and the treatment of solar plus storage projects, along with the company's explanation of due diligence and ranking processes. The company also responds to CIEA's proposal to overhaul the JTS tail year modeling methodology, which Public Service argues is procedurally improper, and also addresses contracting issues, including the use of model PPAs and the eligibility for stage 2 pricing relief. Finally, the company opposes directives for accelerated transmission CPCN filings, explaining that such proposals duplicate existing JTS approved processes and underestimate the complexity of transmission planning. Overall, Public Service rejects these issues and seeks confirmation of its proposed approach to ensure timely and effective implementation. In light of the Commission's prior decision authorizing reply comments upon request and the unopposed nature of this motion, Council recommends granting Public Services motion for leave to file reply comments and waiving any remaining response time as requested.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Goodman,
Also agree.
as do I.
Thank you. And with that, I'll hand it back to Mr. Eden.
Thank you. As I referenced earlier, the company's proposed Tier 1 NTP portfolio contains approximately 4,900 megawatts of resources. This Tier 1 NTP portfolio has broad support from most parties who filed written responses, including WRA, Conservation Coalition, Vote Solar, CIEA, COSA-SIA, and Interwest. I won't go over the details of these various responses now, but at a high level, parties representing independent power producers, or IPPs, argue that deferring renewable projects to the forthcoming just transition solicitation will likely increase costs, perhaps significantly, if the projects are unable to qualify for tax credits. Environmental advocacy groups like WRA and Conservation Coalition raise similar concerns, but also assert the company needs to acquire additional renewable energy to achieve an 80% emissions reduction by 2030 and to implement the coal retirements this commission previously approved. On the other hand, staff, UCA, and CEO, which I'll refer to as the state agencies, recommend an alternative portfolio of only about 3,500 megawatts of nameplate capacity. The reduction in size is due to the elimination of the 4 highest cost wind bids. The state agencies argue the commission should reduce the size of the NTP portfolio to ensure there will be additional resources acquired through the JTS. They assert the company's Tier 1 NTP portfolio does not adequately address just transition goals, nor does it fully reflect transmission concerns. The state agencies note there is no transmission analysis or quantification of the cost of curtailments, so the NTP projects presented are the cost of those projects are understated. In addition, the state agencies assert a smaller NTP portfolio is warranted because the resource mix of the NTP portfolio is based on the JTS Phase 1 modeling, which assumes much different pricing for various types of generation. The state agencies reason that updated modeling could demonstrate the optimal resource mix has less wind than what was included in the company's proposed NTP portfolio. While WRA largely supports the company's Tier 1 portfolio, it also proposes an alternative portfolio with fewer resources. And then similarly, at the technical conference, Chair Blank proposed for discussion purposes a pared down NTP portfolio that contained only 6 projects on the theory that such a portfolio would reduce risks regarding transmission and curtailments. And as Mr. DeCenzo summarized earlier, Public Service and its reply continues to support its full NTP portfolio. Finally, yesterday we received a public comment from Triple Oak Power, who is the developer of bid 068, the 500 megawatt PPA wind project. Triple Oak states that it supports approval of the full NTP portfolio and that Public Service no longer thinks it is necessary to change the point of interconnection for bid 068. Before we dive into the first decision point, I'll turn it over to the Commission for any introductory comments you might have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Eden. I do have very brief comments I want to start with, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. For me, I continue to have some significant concerns, as well as a comment on tax credit safe harboring that shape my thinking that I want to lay out at the start of our deliberation. First, there is considerable uncertainty over the exact transmission lines, the cost, and the timing of the required new transmission needed to be built to transfer remote generation into the Denver metro area as firm power. Second, in the best case, without considering transmission-related constraints, we're looking at substantial curtailment levels that may be $1 billion plus MBV cost to customers, yet this risk is largely unquantified. Third, the most recent low demand scenario Compass runs are from October 2024 and rely on assumptions that are clearly outdated. As such, it is challenging to figure out how to optimize, particularly when investments without this basic modeling, as the state agency comments suggest. Fourth, there is little analysis on this record about the transmission and other benefits of siting additional generation in the Denver metro area in ways that make it difficult to compare competing projects within and outside the Denver metro area. Finally, I'd say that through the workshop and in various comments, these four concerns have not been meaningfully addressed or substantively resolved. At the same time, on the tax credits, after reviewing the party comments, I'm now convinced that it's too risky to wait until the JTS to approve the bulk of the NTP projects. At the same time, however, I think there is a little bit of time to make sure we get this right, as suggested in the COSA comments, proposing we take 30 days to verify key pieces of the NTP due diligence, but likely nowhere near as much time as I was originally thinking. So for me, I'm landing somewhere around the state agency and WRA alternative proposals, both of which I found highly constructive, given the concerns I just outlined. As such, I'm going to propose that we approve some projects today, potentially reject some others, and then require some very limited additional analysis in the coming weeks before we finalize a multi-billion-dollar set of projects, at least for me, likely in the range of the state agency and WRA proposals. And to facilitate the discussion, I've asked advisors to divide the conversation into blocks of projects along these lines. So that's my opening thoughts. Commissioner Plant, anything you'd like to say? And if you're okay, just going through it in blocks of project, at least to jumpstart the conversation.
Yeah, that works for me. I think yeah, a lot of these same concerns were raised in the original 2021 ERP after the 120-day report. And as I recall, we were significantly concerned around potential curtailments and reduce the size of the projects pretty significantly from the company's proposal, as well as a number of the advocates. That ended up, I think, not working out so well because the IRA is gone away, and so now we're left, in another difficult situation. But I do generally agree with the approach and moving forward, and I also thought the state agency's approach and WRA's approach was compelling. I also, and this isn't going to come up in this deliberation, but one of the things that I've started thinking about, particularly in light of some of the ELCC numbers around the 8-hour storage that we saw within the bids, is that we're a little bit limited when we think about the capacity projects, either the gas projects or the storage projects, really comparing them on a basis of cost per kilowatt month. And for the 4-hour storage, what works against them is their ELCC, because they're limited by the 4 hours. And we have more 4-hour storage on the system. But with the 8-hour storage that was proposed, some of the projects that were proposed here, their ELCCs are way up in the 90s. And, that puts them directly against gas projects. But to look at them just on the basis of that cost really doesn't also look at the benefits that they can provide to the system and the frequency with which they'll be actually operating. In the situation of the gas, we've been told by the company it's about a 5% operation, and that makes every kilowatt hour very, very expensive. And so as we're thinking, this again, this doesn't apply in this, portfolio here because there were none that came forward. But, I'm starting to, as we start to think about the portfolios going forward, particularly in light of some of the issues around a potential curtailment, there's some benefits that can be attributed to storage when the variety of other measures like ELCC and cost are fairly similar that I think maybe aren't generally being considered within the standard model. But I just wanted to get that out as an initial thought that I had as we're as I was looking through the various different elements of the portfolios and the bids that were submitted in this particular one, not to apply to the NTP, but as we come up on the 120-day report and future RFPs, I think it's worth considering.
Just a quick question on that. I share your perspective, and I think you're right. It's the IRA really caused a lot of problems for us. Is there an 8-hour storage bed in the tier 1 or I know there's not in the tier 1 and the tier 2 or
No, they weren't selected. Specifically one that was interesting to me was an 8-hour storage project in Pueblo. It was rejected because of the cost, and that's what sort of stimulated this for me because the cost wasn't that much more than a comparative gas project, and which did make the tier, I think tier 2, but
do you have
anyway,
the bid number for that?
I can find it.
I believe it's 108.
Okay.
Yeah, it's possible. I can look it up though.
Okay. No worries.
Again, it's not, for this NTP. I started thinking of, as I was looking at, the various challenges we have, and yeah, I just started thinking maybe we need to think about storage in a little bit differently than directly against gas as just on cost.
Commissioner Gilman, anywhere you'd like to go?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate hearing from you each at the onset. I think your proposal to take it through kind of each of the layers of the portfolio that were recommended by the different parties makes a lot of sense to me. But I think it might be helpful at the onset here to just kind of step back and frame what we're doing, why we're here, and kind of what we've learned so far. Especially because I think the general public and those trying to follow along can get kind of lost in the alphabet soup of the NTP and the ERPs and the JTSs and all these things going on. This is a kind of a different and abbreviated process that we're in here to really ensure that Colorado ratepayers can take advantage of as many tax advantaged renewables as possible before those costs go up as a result of the federal government's removal of tax incentives for those certain renewable projects like wind and solar. For the last several years, we know we've been seeing renewables come in as a really cost-effective source of new generation for Colorado, and federal tax credits were very helpful in buying down that cost to our ratepayers. And with the removal of those tax credits, there's certainly an expectation, I think, that surrounds this whole proceeding that costs will increase. So Colorado's taken this proactive measure to try to get a solicitation in time to be able to get those renewables online while they would still be able to qualify for those tax credits to help really buy down the cost for Colorado ratepayers. And so this solicitation allowed us to get that pricing and to understand, before those costs go up, what looks like the best kind of near-term moves for us. But I will mention they were also allowed to get pricing for dispatchable resources like gas, as the company indicated they would need to at least consider some for their grid operations. So as a result, this solicitation went out to understand the available projects and pricing for an immediate or near term. I guess nothing's immediate if you're building it, but near term acquisition of more. The downside, I think, as we're discussing today, as you hit on, Chairman, is in this abbreviated process, we get less modeling, we get less feedback about what this means for other parts of the system. And so, I think what we're really trying to do here today is balance the pros and cons of that, of moving forward in a quicker way to ensure we can get more resources before the costs go up for our ratepayers, but doing so with frankly less information than is ideal than we've built into the larger scale versions of this process. We're also doing this at a time where the company is adamant they need significantly more resources. It's not immediately obvious, what we'll see play out in that load growth. But certainly everyone's recognizing that there may well be a significant level of load growth, and we're doing this at a time of rapidly escalating prices. And so that's to the what have we learned? We now have kind of fresh pricing in. We have pricing from about 2 years ago or so, and it's clear costs have gone up considerably in those 2 years, really across the board for resources. But most pointedly on the gas resources, we're seeing those escalate at, maybe about double the pace of the escalation of the other costs. And so it's really a very, very challenging planning environment. And I think that will play out in our discussions today, where we've got, expectations for high load growth. So we need to acquire new resources. Yet the ever kind of changing policy environment around the cost increases, some really dramatic cost increases we're seeing around just tariffs and different changes to policy, just make this a very challenging environment to pick the right path. And so just thought that might be helpful in framing our discussion. I think we're really trying to walk this line of getting as much as we can before the price goes up. That looks prudent to do, doing so with less information than is ideal, and with all of these kind of swirling uncertainties about really the prospect of even deeper cost increases in the future. And so we will see, we will debate all of the different parts and pieces, but it's a challenging environment to be making these decisions for sure.
Well, I greatly appreciate the context. I thought that was really well said and framed, and I wouldn't say anything differently, but maybe Commissioner Plant would add on or say it differently.
No, I agree. And one of the things, the other aspect that really that makes me think about is how we can price in risk, because gas commodity price risk is really, it can, as we're seeing, it can really significantly change things, and it's difficult to work that price risk into bidding. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to let you know it was bid 56 was the one that I was referring to.
And that's in Pueblo, you said. All right. With that framing, Mr. Eden, let's get into the projects.
Okay, thank you. So as I referenced earlier at the technical conference, Chair Blank proposed moving forward with the following 6 bids: bid 053, 054, 034, 135, 114, and 099. All of the bids in this portfolio that Chair Blank proposed are included within Public Services Tier 1 portfolio. Thus, the company and most of the parties support these projects. The state agencies recommend a different storage project, bid 118, as opposed to bid 114, but otherwise support these 6 projects. So unless you have any questions for me, I'll stop here for your vote on whether to move forward with these projects.
So I'm going to just break it out project by project for clarity and start with bid 099, a 200 megawatt company-owned gas CT facility. The JTS phase one modeling predicts we'll need way more than 200 megawatts of new CTs, in part to balance out the new renewables. The bid price has been tested competitively. The company has agreed to a PIM, and it's clear we need dispatchable resources in the Denver metro area. And no party approved this bid. So, Commissioner Plant, any thoughts on bid 99? You're muted still.
Yeah, I'm trying to and then we're going through these individually. Oh, 99, yeah. I originally was not keen on 99 just because there is no tax advantage to including this in the NTP, but recognizing that the in-service date, if we include it in the NTP, would get it one summer earlier than if we don't. And recognizing that it's a part of the overall portfolio, I supported it. So.
Commissioner Goman?
Yes, I agree. I mean, certainly was competitive in looking at it. I will say, we've seen that, as I mentioned in the framing, seen the prices rise across the board, especially with these gas resources kind of most acutely. So it's hard to call something as prices increase quite a bit, no regrets. But as you mentioned, it looks as though indicatively from everything we know, we will be needing more. And this looks to be kind of the best bet in the current crop. But certainly agree with Commissioner Plant. It's hard to kind of price in and prospect all of the aspects of risk, and certainly the gas commodity cost risk. Turns out everybody wants the gas all at the same time, and it raises the price quite a bit. And that just remains an issue. But I don't disagree. I think it looks indicatively like we'll need that type of resource, and bid 99 appears to be the best available here.
Second, I'd suggest we approve bid 113, a 300 megawatt PPA storage project located in the Denver metro area. I mean, for me, this bid is priced materially lower than the utility-owned alternative bid 114. Moreover, when a transmission adder is included as discussed in the JTS, it appears to be the most economic storage project. This project, albeit the utility-owned version, was also supported by the company and Western Resource advocates. In their alternative portfolio, the state agencies recommend bid 113, the PPA version, while CCEC and others have put forward, at least in my view, persuasive arguments for why we should go with a cheaper PPA version, bid 113, instead of bid 114. Like Commissioner Plant suggested at the technical workshop, and as the state agencies argued in their comments, I am interested in bid 118, also interested in bid 118, which is the least expensive storage bid on price and located in Routt County, two very attractive features. But it's not in the Denver metro area, and the company claims it wants to do initial analysis of the options to determine the optimal use of the Hayden Interconnect. So I guess for now, the conversation is, do we prefer bid 113 to 114, which I do, and then I would look at bid 118 separately and potentially in addition to 113, but I'd like to, for me, 113, because it's in the Denver metro area and the way it's priced is a no-brainer. But Commissioner Plant, anywhere you'd like to go on storage, and I'm not proposing to take up 118 now.
Okay, yeah, I'll leave 118 for later. I agree with you on 113.
Commissioner Goman?
I do agree on 113. I don't think their reasoning to accept the higher priced 114 over 113 more persuasive.
Okay. Third, I'd approve wind bids 53, 54, 034, and 135, all of which can come online prior to the end of 2028, and that totals just under 600 megawatts. I'll have more to say about bid 127 in a minute. So let's put that aside and let's just focus on those four bids. So any thoughts on those four wind bids? Which seemed reasonably priced and are attractive to me because they can come online in a short time frame. So thoughts on those four bids, Commissioner Plant?
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Goman?
I also agree.
All right. So, Mr. Eden, I'll turn it back to you, but I'd just say overall, we just approved, I think, 1,100 megawatts of nameplate capacity and firm capacity of 500 megawatts. And really, no matter what we do on anything else, I'd ask the company to move forward with those projects. But why don't you take us to the next block of projects?
Sure. So I'll move now to considering more of the state agency's preferred portfolio. And one of the defining traits of the state agency's recommended portfolio is the exclusion of the following four wind projects: bid 075, bid 057, bid 068, and bid 097. The state agencies question the cost effectiveness of these four wind bids, particularly given the lack of consideration of curtailment costs or incremental transmission needs in this expedited NTP process. The state agencies further argue the elimination of these wind bids will help ensure there will be additional resources acquired in the JTS and is consistent with what updated modeling would likely demonstrate as the optimal resource mix. In contrast, the company and IPP and environmental interests all support the company's Tier 1 portfolio, which includes these four wind projects. According to parties like WRA, price increases associated with losing the tax credits outweighs uncertainties regarding additional curtailments and transmission costs. I have a recommendation, but I'll pause here for your discussion.
Yeah, I think I agree with the state agencies on this one, that leaving additional headroom for resource acquisitions in the JTS is important and will likely enable the company to rebalance the portfolio as needed and to pursue additional just transition benefits. I also agree with the state agencies that these four projects are not priced low enough to approve them now, given the concerns about portfolio optimization, uncertainty over transmission costs, and the inability to quantify curtailment. So for all those reasons, I would not vote to approve these four bids at this time. But Commissioner Plant, anywhere you'd like to go?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is painful to leave projects that could qualify for the tax credit off of the list, but the pricing on these just didn't justify it, in my view, particularly when we've got, the other RFP coming forward that where we can get a little bit more competition, but also a little bit more um, uh, due diligence and analysis, recognizing that there's an inherent risk in the accelerated process here. So I would agree with that.
Commissioner Goman?
Yeah, thanks. So the end result here would then be the exclusion of those four in the Tier 1 portfolio, but addition of bid 127 to what you
I want to talk a little more about 127 separately. So right now we're just talking about those four bids.
Okay, sorry, so many numbers. I'm trying to
I know,
hold on to
I'm
make
bouncing back
sure
and forth
that I
between the
100% agree with which bids you're talking about. But yes, I agree with that. I agree.
All right. You want to keep going, Mr. Eden?
Sure. So turning to bid 127, bid 127 is not included in the portfolio chair blank proposed in the technical workshop. However, the 608 megawatt utility owned wind project is included in the state agency's proposed portfolio as well as the company's Tier 1 portfolio. So I'll pause again and for your discussion on bid 127.
Yeah, so I'm generally supportive of approving bid 127, a company owned, as Mr. Eden said, roughly 600 megawatt wind farm. But I just have concerns given the lack of recent Encompass modeling for all the reasons the state agencies outlined. And given the lack of modeling, even though we requested it in the JTS by December, in our most recent JTS RRR order, we're asking the company for updated Compass model runs and analysis of curtailment and some additional certainty on the transmission to be filed by April 2nd, 2026. So for me, I'd probably condition approval of bid 127 on that April analysis, really addressing our concerns regarding curtailment, transmission, and portfolio optimization, which I would also ask the company to file in this process as well as the JTS. And I mean, I'd just say I'm just struggling to sign off on rate basing a $1 to $2 billion wind investment without having these basic analyses, especially given what we're seeing on the likely curtailment of Rush Creek and Cheyenne Ridge. Although I thought the staff comments, explaining that as being as the PTCs roll off, those are the units you want to curtail first, were really helpful for my thinking, but still a big information void. So I like the pricing of this. I'd like to see this project move forward, and I'll have some suggestions perhaps for helping the company make sure this is safe harbor, because I was confused whether it was safe harbored already or not. But maybe see a little more analysis in the coming weeks and months, but convinced we can't wait to the NTP. So this is a new concept, and you may want a week to think about this, Commissioner Flynn, but and confer with advisors and counsel. Given our process, I know this is hitting you a little cold, but just any thoughts? And I understand if the pricing is low enough, you just want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, 127, the pricing is pretty good on this. It's a large project, and it's about $1 billion in tax credits. So I think that, for me, in the NTP, this really, checks the boxes. I think, we have these issues around every project coming forward, how it's going to fit in terms of Encompass and how it's going to, what the potential impacts of curtailment are. But, for me, and the combination of the low price and the tax credit advantage really puts us into the approval column for me. So anyway.
Commissioner Goodman, anywhere you'd like to go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to delay a week just for figuring this out, but just trying to understand a little better how the conditional would work, like what future steps you see playing out and who does what by when. And
I just want to know we're not going to curtail this thing or a bunch of other wind farms 20 or 30% of the time by approving this. And I just don't know that to be true on this record.
So do you see that as contingent on the April 1 modeling, or is there something else that would?
No, the April 2nd modeling.
So, because you don't let things come in on April Fool's Day. No,
I don't like that.
I'm catching on.
Yeah.
Mr. Eden, I mean, I guess if we have the time, we can figure this out and have a separate meeting, but just trying to understand from your perspective, does that work? Do we have a functional way to make that conditional situation run, or is that just making this more complicated than it's really possible?
Well, Commission. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, Mr. Eden, we've been talking about it for days, but I don't know what you're gonna
the
say.
Commission has lots of options here. I think one way this could work is to give conditional approval to 127 here, subject to the commission feeling more comfortable that the concerns it raised regarding curtailments and transmission is addressed in that April 2nd modeling report. I anticipate how it would work is that after that additional modeling is filed, then the commission would deliberate again and issue another decision about whether to move forward fully with bid 127. That would give you more opportunities for more information and modeling. On the other hand, there's the potential that it could cause additional delays beyond what is currently expected. For instance, if the April 2nd modeling is delayed again, that might cause further issues.
Okay, but that would only be delays to bid 127. You don't see this like trickling out and causing any impact to anything else, which I think is my main concern here. Yeah, I mean, this certainly has a later in-service date than a lot of the others, if I'm looking at that correctly. So it seems as though we have time to evaluate that. This is not like an immediate, this is 2 years behind some of the others that were bid. So, that seems to me prudent. Ideally, we can work out all the details, but we're kind of making this whole one up as we go to try to make sure we can move at the pace that's necessary. But I think it's okay to do some more due diligence, including with that modeling that we already expect to come in 2 months. So I would agree to that and would refer to Ms. Green to color in the details that are needed to make it work.
I mean, I don't know. My background's in the private sector, and just approving $1 to $2 billion without knowing like what curtailment it is, to the nearest hundreds of millions of dollars just doesn't feel right to me. And I just treat customer money the way I treat my own money, and it's just a real struggle for me on this record to approve this kind of investment without trying to get a little more certainty that we're going to not deeply regret this. So
I think it kind of walks the line of our prudent path forward, where we've moved really unprecedented quickly on all the rest of this without all of the tools we generally have, which has been one of the downsides, right? Like you can't move at that speed and have all the information you would normally have. Yet this one is not getting developed tomorrow anyway. And so this seems like a prudent way to feel better about the portfolio while not holding up all of the rest of the resources that are intended to move faster and have less of that concern. So I'm supportive of trying to make it work.
I guess Commissioner Plant, would you like to footnote a dissent?
No, I mean, if if we think this isn't going to, put the project at risk of increasing costs or not, making some of the deadlines on the tax credit, then I'm fine with carving this one out. I just want to make sure that we don't, like, it doesn't become a sort of a delay thing, and costs end up going up at the end of the day. And we
Yeah, I
lose.
mean, it's a really attractively priced project and we don't want to lose it. But if we're looking at 20% curtailment, it's not attractively priced to me, or a curtailment elsewhere. Especially since the risk of compensable PTCs is on customers. Keep going, Mr. Eden.
Well, just on that, it sounds like there's a 3-0 vote to conditionally approve bid 127, subject to the additional modeling. And as I remember, in the JTS RRR decision, the commission directed additional modeling, including requiring the model to accept all of the tier 1 NTP projects. So 127 would be in that modeling run. And then, as I understand it, the commission would be saying that that modeling has to be filed in the NTP proceeding, recognizing that they're going to be filing, the very similar modeling in the JTS as well.
I think that's right.
Okay. Great. Well, the next issue then is the storage bid that's already been discussed a little bit. This is bid 118 in Routt County. The state agencies recommend the commission include bid 118 instead of the company's proposed bid 114. The state agencies make this recommendation even while expressly acknowledging the company's assertions that modeling of additional options is needed to determine the optimal use of the transmission interconnection that this project would use. The state agencies reference bid 118's favorable pricing, its location in a just transition community, and the fact that the company included it as a tier 2 backup bid and describes it in the NTP report as, quote, highly feasible and reliable for execution, end quote. In its reply, Public Service opposes moving forward with bid 118. Public Service explains the bid would require electricity to flow through TOT5, through which the company has limited transfer rights. Public Service also asserts the project would require a line to be uprated and a full system impact study. Ultimately, Public Service recommends the bid undergo further consideration when the appropriate studies and analysis have been completed in the JTS. So I'll pause here unless you have any other questions.
Yeah, why don't you keep going through the remainder of the solar and solar plus storage bids, and I have some thoughts about how to take up the whole thing. So if you want to keep framing up the remaining bids, sure. That'd be great.
So the remaining bids, and again, these are the remaining bids in the state agency's preferred portfolio. So it's bid 089, which is a 500 megawatt PPA solar project, bid 046, a 400 megawatt PPA solar plus storage, and bid 055, a 200 megawatt PPA solar plus storage. These are all, again, not included in Chair Blang's initially proposed portfolio from the technical conference. However, these 3 bids are included in the state agency's proposed portfolio, as well as the company's tier 1 portfolio.
So I guess for me, for solar plus storage, and standalone storage, I generally agree with the state agencies and the WRA alternative that we should acquire a total of roughly 1,000 megawatts of solar and 700 megawatts or so of additional storage over and above the 300 megawatts in bid 113 that we already approved, for a total of 1,000 megawatts of storage. At the same time, however, the cheapest solar plus storage bids are outside the Denver metro area, bids 46 and 55, while the bid inside the metro area, 94, is materially more expensive. However, when I apply the transmission adders that the company proposed in the JTS, it gets much closer. Likewise, on the standalone storage, I'm a big fan of 118 on pricing and location in a just transmission community, but I don't know how to sort through the issues surrounding the best way to use that interconnection point and how much storage we want, especially outside the Denver metro area. On the standalone solar, I was struggling to pick among the 2 potential projects, bid 89 or bid 03, although maybe we have more information on bid 89. I haven't read that have different trade-offs on price and risk. Given all this, and prior to approving these multi-billion-dollar investments, I'd like to talk to you about asking the company to further analyze all these bids, 46, 55, 89, 3, 118, and 94. And I'd also throw the bid you mentioned, Commissioner Plant, I think 56, into that mix. And not asking for any additional modeling, but maybe a spreadsheet analysis of the value of being inside the Denver metro area, hopefully incorporating the transmission modeling we required on this exact issue in the JTS, the interconnect issues surrounding bid 118, the due diligence issues surrounding bid 89, as well as those raised by COSA, and maybe also looking at your 8-hour storage issue, Commissioner Plant, that you raised on bid, I'm going to get it wrong, 56. Yeah, 56. I'd also like to see an hour-by-hour basis when the key Denver metro area substations, particularly Smoky Hill and Daniels Park, are fully loaded and constrained over the next 10 years. Hopefully, based on existing model runs. I'm not asking for any additional transmission or Encompass model runs, just a business case helping us understand by time of day the economics of locating resources within or outside the Denver metro area. So I guess I'd adopt the general COSA suggestion and take some additional times. I don't know if we can hit a March 30th written decision as COSA suggests, and I defer to advisors on process and timing with the goal of resolving this sooner as possible. For these 7 or 8 projects, I'm committed to doing what the state agencies suggest, and maybe even more in terms of the total megawatts. But I just can't sort through the within versus outside Denver metro area issues on this record. And these are multi-billion-dollar decisions. And I mean, my gut says it's worth it putting the storage and the solar in the Denver metro area. But I'm not prepared to make a multi-billion-dollar decision based on my gut. And likewise, I don't think we have enough information on bid 118 to approve it without seeing why the company wants to look at alternatives. So I don't think we're going to wait for the system impact study analysis and all that, but hopefully they can give us more clarity than exists on this record. I think it's also worth looking at the 8-hour storage you highlighted in Pueblo. And really the reason I'm suggesting this is because I just don't have a basis for determining how much storage should be inside Denver versus outside Denver. And I think that could be a very large issue on the transmission. So that's what I'm struggling with, and that's why I'm proposing this. I see you unmuted, Commissioner Gilman. You want to jump in?
I think before Commissioner Plant goes, I need a quick recap. If you could for me recap what you're suggesting as a yes, in a tier 1, we move forward, give the approval today, and then what the list of projects were that you wanted some more process, and just, it doesn't have to be painfully slow, but read me the numbers as if I'm ready to go.
So I'm suggesting we basically adopt the targets set by the state agencies. Roughly 1,000 megawatts of solar and roughly 1,000 megawatts of storage, which also includes bid 113, which we already approved. So more or less, we're aiming for what the state agencies wanted, and maybe it's a bit less, maybe it's a bit more. But other than that, I'm not proposing we approve any bid right now. But we ask the company for further analysis about the benefits and costs of putting stuff inside and outside the Denver metro area, especially on 46 and 55, which are very attractively priced solar plus storage bids, but are outside the Denver metro area. And we just, at least on this record, I don't know what that means in terms of, meeting peak demand in Denver. There's also a fairly expensive bid 094, which is also solar and storage combined. It's less, but I think the two outside bids are like over 600 megawatts. 94 is like 450 megawatts, but that's located in the Denver metro area. So I just do not have a basis for determining if the higher price paid for 94 is worth the benefits of getting put in the Denver metro area. When you look at the transmission credits that the company put forward in the JTS, it gets close. It almost buys down the difference. And I just don't know how to make that decision. And I think there is I'm really concerned about doing another $1 billion worth of storage outside Denver because what we're saying. Okay.
So let me just Okay, so just to recap, like our prior discussion and this, as I'm like
Yeah.
passing all these numbers. So you would move forward with the 4 wind bids we discussed, like first and foremost, without this contingency.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then bid 127 wind bid goes to this additional information phase. Storage bid 113
Is
goes
already approved. Yep.
Okay, so then it's really solar plus storage and additional storage. So and the thermal, sorry, the thermal's already go. So it's really what solar plus storage, and what if any additional storage should get approved here that you're discussing. And you're basically discussing no, I don't want to call it automatic as if this 2-hour meeting is automatic, but no, like we're definitively moving forward with certain solar project or solar plus storage. You want any of those to have a slight additional process to understand. Basically, as I understand, try to get a proxy for the value of the in Denver versus out of Denver transmission constraint issue.
And I think there's also due diligence issues that COSA raised. I think there's 8-hour versus 4-hour storage issues that Commissioner Plant raised. And I think there's issues surrounding the interconnect at Hayden. So
Would
I
that,
think
I want to get the discrete bid numbers from you for each of those categories that you wanted to go through those. I mean, does it roughly include like the tier 1 and tier 2 bids, or it's a different? It's a different.
So I'm sorry. So the bids at stake are so the 2 bids outside Denver are 46 and 55.
That's solar plus storage.
Yeah, and they're solar plus storage, and they're very nicely priced.
Okay.
The bid in Denver is 94, and that's located great, but more expensive.
Okay.
And then the competing storage bids are 118 located in Routt County and 56 8-hour storage voted in Pueblo. And the 56 is not a tier 2 bid. And I don't know if there may be reasons why that can't move forward anyway. And I think 118 needs further information. I don't think we could approve 118 today, because we need to know more about what that interconnection can potentially do.
Okay, and then on solar, standalone solar?
There were 2 bids, 3 and 89, and I thought there were risk issues that may be worth further explanation, or maybe they got resolved in 89 as a no-brainer. But to me, this, we're just trying to optimize solar and storage across all these projects. And if we do standalone storage up at Routt County, then the standalone solar is very attractive. But if we're doing a bunch of solar plus storage, maybe the standalone solar and the standalone storage is less attractive. So I'm just struggling to resolve this today on this record, because I have some like gut reactions, but I mean, there's no business case really that makes me comfortable allocating $2 billion, $3 billion of customer money. And I get we can't wait till the NTP, but
JTS.
To the JTS, but I would like some additional help. No additional modeling. There's just no time for it on this. On the third-party PPA bids, we just don't have too long. But the core of it is I don't know how to value in Denver versus outside Denver, and my gut says that's a big deal.
Okay, sorry, I'll let Commissioner Clint go. I just want to make sure my notes were in the right place with what.
Yeah, and again, I know I'm hitting you with this for the first time, so Commissioner Plant.
Oh, we're used to it. I think COSA had suggested doing a little more analysis on it. I agree with you. I don't know how to value the difference in price between something that's in the Denver constraint and something that's out of the Denver constraint. I think one of those that was out of the Denver constraint was a similar size. So you're looking at 400 megawatts versus 450 megawatts within the Denver constraint, but there's a significant difference in price as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, what do you do with that?
I don't know what that exchange of value is. I'm less concerned about, having more analysis on just the storage projects because they're not on that time frame of tax credits. So I'm not that I'm not as concerned about but the solar ones and I mean COSA has suggested similar things, so I'm assuming that the industry isn't concerned that this kind of, I think what you're asking for is not a complete, encompass modeling. You're looking at trying to just do a little bit more, trying to do a little, and I don't know if that was that like a week, 2 weeks, something that would just sort of give us a little more information before we make that final decision. And I'd be fine with that as long as it's not, imperiling the sort of tax credits, which sounds like it wouldn't.
Well, just one more thing on that. When you do the solar plus storage, you may be crowding out the future standalone storage. So if depending on how much solar plus storage we do, it could limit either bid 56 or 118.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it with 118 just because they're all 4 hour. I don't know, 56, until you get to 500 megawatts of capacity with 8 hour storage, you don't decline in ELCC. So, but for the 4 hour, sure, I think, it does, they do work against each other, I think.
I mean, there's issues with the interconnect, but just realize 200 megawatts of 4-hour storage is essentially 100 megawatts of 8-hour storage. So there's not some huge difference. The difference is
Yeah,
in
it's
the
just a question of
interconnect.
how how
Right.
they model it. Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Gilman, anywhere you go.
Back to me. Yeah, sorry. The first interlude was just understanding my list here. So this would be slightly different than the issue pretty different. The issue for 127 will be get the additional modeling, try to understand curtailments, etc., with regard to a conditional approval of that. For these, it sounds like the remedy you're seeking is to try to have the company build and submit, a relatively simple spreadsheet analysis that attempts to add some of like the transmission adders and other considerations already largely approved in the JTS process, to just get some further insight into the in Denver versus out of Denver economics with relation to these 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 bids.
Yeah. And maybe telling us on an hour by hour basis when power is getting constrained into the Denver metro area to the extent they have it. I'm sure they do.
Just currently, which is like not
Yeah.
something that requires modeling, something they already
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems as though that can be done like on a pretty expedited time frame. That we're not reinventing anything here. These are already numbers everyone should already have. So yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to hear from Mr. Eden, but I guess my gut reaction is that that seems possible and something that can be done in a number of weeks. And as Commissioner Plant pointed out, with industry already asking for some of this, slightly additional process, it doesn't seem like there's a concern we're hearing that would really be, a standalone roadblock to say qualification for the tax credit. So yeah, I don't know, curious, Mr. Eden, on your thoughts on feasibility and direction there, but it seems relatively feasible to me.
Yeah, I think it's feasible if the commission were to order public service to file this additional analysis. Again, it's not additional encompass modeling or power flow analysis, but giving the commission more information about when the Denver transmission constraint is actually binding and showing what these bids would cost once you incorporate the Denver Metro credit into the prices as contemplated in the JTS. Again, there's always risk for additional delays if parties are filing triple R's about this decision, or the company or parties would dispute the company's representations in this additional analysis. But it's definitely a path that the commission could take, and it might not cause that much additional delay.
All right, you want to take us through the rest of the decision items?
Sure, yeah. The next topic is bid 134. In the NTP report, Public Service commented significantly on this bid, which is a 190 megawatt PPA thermal unit. The company acknowledged the commission's preference for diversity in thermal ownership and stated that on that basis, the bid initially appeared attractive. However, Public Service ultimately recommends against including this bid in the NTP portfolio due to several concerns that arose during due diligence. At the technical conference, in response to questioning from Chair Blank, Mr. Landrum opined that the company would not be opposed to working with the developer of bid 134 to resolve the company's concerns. So the decision before you is whether or how to move forward with bid 134. I have a recommendation, but I'll pause first for your discussion and questions.
I'd welcome the recommendation on this.
Advisors recommend the Commission direct Public Service to continue working with the developer of bid 134, including by offering option payments to make the project viable. Advisors specifically recommend the Commission direct Public Service to offer the developer of bid 134 prorated monthly option payments of $3 million per year in exchange for a commitment to remain exclusive to Public Service for not less than 1 year up to a 2-year term. In addition, bid 134 would have the ability to refresh its bid price by no more than 10% of the LCC rate Public Service calculated for purposes of the NTP. If within the term of its commitment, the developer agrees to an offtake agreement with a different entity, the developer would be required to return the option payments with interest. These metrics are consistent with what the Commission approved for backup projects in Phase 1 of the JTS. And as part of the agreement to commit to Public Service, the developer would be required to bid into the JTS that its bid fees should be waived.
That's fine by me. Commissioner Plant,
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Gilman.
I also agree.
I have some thoughts on option payments in general. Should I do that now, Mr. Eden, or later?
I think that might make more sense in this next topic for backup portfolio, if you'd let me set that one up.
Okay.
So as part of the well, and I forget, did you vote on I think you voted on 134. Okay. As part of the NTP report, Public Service requests the approval of a backup Tier 2 portfolio of NTP projects to ensure flexibility and reliability in implementing the NTP portfolio. However, the company recommends against option payments for backup projects. Public Service opines that option payments for all Tier 2 projects are not likely to be an effective use of customer funds because it is likely that projects activated after July 2026 will be further challenged to achieve a COD within the NTP acquisition period and may face tax credit eligibility challenges. Similar to Public Service, the state agencies oppose providing option payments to backup projects, given the expedited nature of the NTP and because the JTS solicitation will be conducted soon. Alternatively, if the Commission does designate a backup bid pool, the state agencies request the Commission provide a set of guidelines for the recovery of incremental costs and a maximum amount of incremental costs recoverable from ratepayers. COSA-SIA and Conservation Coalition do not oppose making milestone payments for Tier 2 resources to ensure they are available as backup bids. CIEA argues the Commission should approve the Tier 2 backup pool but reject the INP hybrid backup process. CIEA argues that attempting to apply the JTS incremental need pool policy to the NTP backup portfolio is unworkable and should be rejected. So the decisions before you are whether to approve a backup portfolio, and if so, whether to permit option payments and repricing. Another decision is which bids should be included in the backup portfolio. And I'll stop here unless you would like a recommendation.
Yeah, I think I'd like a recommendation.
Sure. So on the first decision points, advisors generally agree with public service, the state agencies, and CIEA and recommend against authorizing option payments for all Tier 2 projects. We further advise against allowing backup projects to reprice once they are activated. Backup projects that are still viable can simply elect to bid into the JTS, where there will be a full opportunity to reprice and competitive tension. Nevertheless, advisors recommend the Commission approve, with minor modifications, the company's proposed Tier 2 NTP portfolio. If nothing else, the existence of a backup portfolio will increase pressure on approved projects to finalize negotiations and move forward with development. As noted above, simply using the JTS to replace failed NTP projects may make it difficult for projects to meet the tax credit eligibility. The Commission should specify that if the company wishes to utilize a backup bid, it must use the same process approved in Phase 2 of the 2021 ERP, in which the company retains the burden of proving that any company-owned backup project was the prudent replacement. And then when the company is deciding whether to move to a backup project or continue negotiations with a project in the approved portfolio, advisors suggest directing the company to consider the price increases associated with the backup projects. For example, if an approved PPA solar project has an LEC of 40 megawatt, $40 per megawatt hour, and the next best backup project has an LEC of 45, it might be reasonable for the company to allow the approved PPA solar project limited price flexibility, so long as the approved project remains less expensive than the as-bid backup project. So I'll pause here. I also have a recommendation on which exact bids are in the Tier 2 portfolio, but I'll stop for your discussion in both.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm good with the recommendation, but I'd like to add one thing on the option payments, which is I'd offer all the Tier 1 projects that don't have full commission approval in our NTP decision and all of the Tier 2 projects, including the companies, $3 million per year in option payments if they want to obtain exclusivity and ensure not just backup projects in the NTP, but a pool of safe harbor projects for the JTS. As such, I'd require that these projects show milestone progress and show that there are no fatal flaws, and show that they're continuing construction. But I'd also require that they be exclusive to this process in the JTS for at least 2 years under a binding contractual commitment, such that failing to comply would not be capped at returning the option payments, but would have, normal contractual damages. And I'm not referring to 134 there, that would be handled separately, which was the thermal project Mr. Eden discussed. So I don't know, would you have any additional comments, Mr. Eden, about how to reconcile that proposal with what you're proposing?
Well, I think the decision the Commission needs to make is whether to approve option payments for the backup Tier 2 portfolio. And as I understand it, the Tier 1 projects that the Commission is deferring or not giving full approval on here. But otherwise, agree with the characterization of the option payments requiring an exclusivity component that would not be capped simply at the amount of the option payments.
Commissioner Plant, anywhere you'd like to go?
Yes, I'm trying to
Yeah, me too.
figure out what it is we're voting on. So, I think, Mr. Eden, you were recommending against authorizing the option payments for all the tier 2 projects. And you're agreeing with that, Chair Blank, but would offer that for the tier 1s that we have not moved forward? Is that, well, I was trying to figure out where your recommendation around option payments was differing from Mr. Eden's recommendation.
I mean, I guess for me, I do it not necessarily. Well, I guess it's pretty similar, right, Mr. Eden? It's the same. It's any non-approved tier 1 project and all the tier 2 projects.
The advisor recommendation is consistent with the state agencies and public service that we would not recommend option payments for the tier 2 projects.
So I guess I disagree with Mr. Eden. I would do option payments because I think the tax credit benefits are, 10 times greater than the cost of the option payments. And I think there's enormous value in having a pool of safe harbor projects for the JTS.
But would they get in under the time frame for tax credits if they were in the standard JTS process? I mean, they wouldn't, right? I mean, are you talking about if they're backups?
If they're safe harbored, and I mean, I don't know about the wind projects. The wind projects may struggle. I think solar projects that are safe harbored, um, uh, if there's a end of 2027 offtake, I think they would be able to come online by the end of 2030. I mean, that's what I mean, if we're not going to have any safe harbor projects in the JTS, what's the point of the JTS?
Well, I mean, the JTS is gonna have its own RFP process, but what you're saying is these would be sort of maintained from the NTP. They'd be compared against they wouldn't need to rebid and all that sort of stuff. They'd be able to just maintain their existing bidding process for consideration within the RFP.
I mean, they can rebid, they can raise the price. I'm not trying to keep the price constant. I'm just saying it's exclusive to the Excel regulated process for a couple of years. So safe harbor and bid into the NTP to the JTS.
I guess if they're going to bid again, what's the point in paying them to maintain their?
It's one, to ensure they're safe harbored, and two, to keep them exclusive to this project process. And they serve as backups in the NTP. So it's a couple things. It's backup in the NTP to ensure there's at least some safe harbor projects in the JTS, and it's to keep it exclusive. We may have to come back to this next week. I may need more time with Mr. Eden. I'm less comfortable with what the parties said on these issues than I was with the individual projects. Commissioner Gilman, anywhere you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not there on the option payments for the backups. I'm particularly struck that we have the company, all of the IPP interest, well, not all of, right, but the representation of the IPP interest and all the state agencies saying, don't do it. So, it would be.
That's because they were worried we'd delay approval to the JTS.
Possibly, but it would be a struggle to get there on this record with those positions, frankly.
Yeah, I understand. All right, so no option payments. I think we're going with the advisor advisor recommendation for now. I may drop a footnote saying I think option payments would be useful, but I agree there's not much of a record for it.
And I just want to be clear, I guess, on Commissioner Plant's vote if he agrees with the advisor recommendation.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that is workable. And then I guess this again, the second decision point for the composition of the tier 2 backup portfolio. We recommend a few modifications to the current backup portfolio. First, the approved backup portfolio should include any tier 1 projects that the commission excluded from the approved tier 1 portfolio. So for example, the 4 highest cost wind projects would be included in the backup portfolio. And then in addition, advisors recommend replacing bid 144 with bid 131 for purposes of the backup portfolio. Bid 131 and 144 are both solar plus storage projects in similar locations with similar transmission concerns. The only valid reason Public Service puts forward for why bid 144 should be included in the backup portfolio instead of bid 131 is because bid 144 is a company-owned bid. However, bid 131 is less expensive and is the only solar plus storage bid that boasts an 8-hour battery. This gives bid 131 a considerable accredited capacity advantages compared to the 4-hour project.
I'm okay with that. Commissioner Plant,
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Goman.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Thanks, Ms. Streeten. I kind of struggle to understand why we skip several more cost-effective bids for the backup pool. This one in particular with 8-hour storage really set it apart and is kind of unique. And I agree with Ms. Streeten. I didn't really hear a properly articulated reason why this would not have made the cut for a backup. So certainly makes sense to me.
Mr. Eden?
Okay, thank you. The next issue is something that Holy Cross brings up. In its response, Holy Cross repeats its request to move forward with its plans to use the results of the NTP and JTS solicitations to acquire up to 60 megawatts of accredited capacity to replace the firm capacity amount of Holy Cross's ownership share of the Comanche Unit 3 coal plant. Holy Cross argues this approach would allow it to implement its rights under paragraph 46 of the updated settlement agreement in the 2021 ERP. Holy Cross sets forth 7 specific provisions it requests the commission approve. According to Holy Cross, Public Service agrees with each of these provisions. One of the provisions specifies that after the commission decision approving the NTP portfolio in whole or in part, Public Service will provide Holy Cross with highly confidential bid packages for all non-public service bids that were not selected to be included in the Tier 1 or Tier 2 portfolios in the Commission's decision on the NTP RFP. The provision notes that Public Service may also provide public service submitted bids at the company's discretion. The state agencies support the agreement reached between Public Service and Holy Cross, reasoning that it is an appropriate extension of the updated settlement agreement and allowing Holy Cross to take advantage of the timely and expedited NTP acquisition is in the public interest. And I have a recommendation, but I'll pause first for any questions you might have.
Nah, if you can give us a recommendation, that'd be great.
Sure. Advisors recommend granting Holy Cross's request in part and approving with modifications the agreed upon provisions Holy Cross puts forth in its response. Advisors recommend the Commission modify the proposed provisions to make clear that the Commission's NTP decision does not impact Holy Cross's rights in the JTS. While the Commission should approve Holy Cross's plans to acquire NTP resources, the JTS is a separate proceeding with different stakeholders. In addition, advisors recommend clarifying that Holy Cross's rights do not include those projects that are included in the approved NTP portfolio, the backup portfolio, or bid 134. And this clarification appears consistent with Holy Cross's proposal, given that Public Service only agrees to provide to Holy Cross the bid packages for bids that were not included in the Tier 1 or the Tier 2 portfolios.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree.
Commissioner Goman?
I also agree.
As do I.
Thank you. Several parties request additional transparency regarding the company's due diligence and bid ranking procedures. For example, COSA and the state agencies raised concerns with the company's process for screening bids, including bid 066. The state agencies recommend requiring public service to file a written explanation to respond to bid-specific issues raised by IPP trade groups, and in particular provide a more detailed explanation for the failed designation for bid 066. CIEA requests the Commission direct public service to provide timely feedback on their due diligence reviews to unsuccessful bidders, arguing that doing so will make the JTS RFP more successful. CIEA also asks that prior to the JTS RFP, the company clarify statements made during the NTP technical conference regarding the benefits of locating storage inside the Denver metro constraint. COSA specifically requests the company provide to developers the modified LEC prices the company used for bid selection and the underlying methodology, as well as what caused their bids to fail or result in a higher LEC than anticipated. COSA further recommends the Commission take 30 days to verify key pieces of the NTP due diligence process. In its reply, Public Service stands by its bid evaluation and due diligence. The company acknowledges that the use of the term failed in Appendix A was overly broad and inadvertently caused confusion, and it attempts to clarify its meaning in the reply. The company specifically goes through issues interveners brought up regarding bids 066, bid 067, bid 079, and bid 007. Public Service also specifically opposes COSA's request to take an additional 30 days to verify the company's due diligence. And again, I have a recommendation on this point if you would like.
Yeah, if you could just make it consistent with what we decided on the solar plus storage, and standalone storage, that'd be great.
Sure. The company's reply provided additional clarity regarding the treatment of bids such as bid 66. Nevertheless, advisors largely agree with the various requests for additional transparency and explanation regarding the company's review of the NTP bids. We are persuaded by the arguments that additional clarity would allow bidders to adjust their bids prior to the JTS. Advisors recommend requiring Public Service to file by April 2nd, 2026 in this proceeding a public explanation regarding whether it is beneficial to locate new storage projects within the Denver metro constraint. In addition, by April 2nd, 2026, Public Service shall provide to bidders the modified LEC and LCC prices the company used for bid selection and the underlying methodology, as well as descriptions of what caused their bids to fail or result in a higher price than anticipated. Advisors do not recommend requiring Public Service to file a written explanation regarding to the due diligence bid-specific issues raised in the technical workshop, including the failed designation of bid 066, because the company's reply largely addresses these concerns. And I guess I'd just add, perhaps if the commission, given the commission's earlier directives to file additional analysis, perhaps it would be better to push these additional directives into mid-April or the end of April.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman,
I also agree.
as do I.
Yeah. So that's a 3-0 decision, and the deadline will be April 15th for those directives. And the next topic, this is something that the state agencies brought up in their response. They raised several concerns with the company's scoring levelized cost metric, which was particularly important for the solar plus storage bids. The state agencies recommend the commission direct the company to continue to vet and refine this metric and work with the state agencies prior to the filing of the JTS Phase 2 120-day report to attempt to resolve concerns with the scoring results and the inability to compare project scores across resource types. And on this point, advisors would just recommend granting the request from the state agencies and directing that prior to the 120-day report and the JTS, Public Service work with the state agencies to attempt to resolve their concerns.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman,
I also agree.
as do I.
So moving to a concern CIEA raised. CIEA raised that argues that the NTP transmission study shows that the existing transmission system can connect the NTP Tier 1 portfolios, but cannot deliver that energy to the Denver metro load without additional infrastructure. CIEA also asserts that in the NTP technical workshop, Public Service confirmed that after the NTP portfolio, the Colorado Power Pathway will be largely subscribed. CIEA recommends the Commission proactively solve this issue by requiring transmission CPCNs to be brought forward by the end of the first quarter of 2026, addressing both transmission delivery forecasted on the Denver Metro constraint and transmission expansion to the bulk electric system. CIEA makes other transmission recommendations relating to the content of the transmission CPCNs and the cost Public Service absorbs in any cost-sharing agreement with developers. In its reply, Public Service opposes CIEA's request to require the company to file certain transmission CPCNs by the end of the first quarter of 2026. The company asserts CIEA's timing does not allow for detailed study or planning related stakeholder work to be completed and is unworkable. Would you like a recommendation?
Yeah, I have some comments, but why don't you make your recommendation first?
Okay. Advisors agree with Public Service and recommend rejecting CIEA's transmission-related request. The Phase 2 framework the Commission largely approved in the JTS sets out the anticipated filing of future transmission filings. While advisors empathize with CIEA's desire to accelerate the development of new transmission, directing Public Service to file a transmission CPCN within 3 months could result in a rushed application that ultimately causes more delay. Regarding CIEA's remaining transmission requests, we recommend finding there is insufficient record to adopt such proposals here.
Commissioner Plant?
Did you have other?
I'm not going to try and influence. I'm going to vote to approve the recommendation. I just have some comments.
Okay, I agree.
Commissioner Goman?
I also agree.
As do I. I just want to say, 3 or 4 years ago, this company came forward with a Colorado Power Pathway, which was, a $2 billion investment to support, $8 or $10 billion worth of generation. And the fact that we knew the transmission before the generation resource acquisition just seemed like a really well-run, thoughtful process. Here, we're now being asked to approve $10 billion in generation with really a very limited understanding of, indicative transmission. And I just share CIEA's frustration with where we're at on transmission. So. Keep going, Mr. Eden.
Sure. Again, another issue CIEA raises is that it argues the Commission should direct Public Service to use the annuity tail method instead of the replacement chain method for purposes of the JTS. CIEA references the NTP bids for expansions or repowers of existing projects and concludes that switching to the annuity tail method for purposes of the JTS will likely result in selecting more PPAs at substantially lower cost, which could benefit ratepayers. Public Service opposes CIEA's recommendation to approve the use of the annuity tail method in the JTS, arguing that the recommendation is improper and inappropriate. And I have a recommendation again if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Advisors agree with Public Service and recommend rejecting CIEA's request on procedural grounds. The Commission should not attempt to modify the suite of Phase 2 portfolios the Commission directed in the Phase 1 decision based on this NTP record.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree.
Commissioner Goman?
I also agree.
As do I.
Thank you. CIEA also argues that Public Service should be prohibited from making.
Can I just ask one question on the tail methodology? Does the company have rights of first refusal on the offtake at the time it's extended Do you know if we did that in the JTS or if that's a requirement here?
That's actually a pending issue in the PPA litigation process. The company proposed PPA language that would kind of effectuate that right of first offer, but it's hasn't been something that the commission's deliberated on yet.
Because that, to me, that's the critical issue in this annuity tail. If, it's tough, if they're just going to some other entity, it's tough to include it. But if there's a right of first refusal or right of first offer, maybe it's easier to include the annuity tail. So anyway, keep going.
Sure. So CIEA also argues that public service should be prohibited from making significant changes to the Model Power Purchase Agreement, or PPA, and the NTP RFP to match the litigated changes to the JTS PPA. CIEA adds, however, that public service should insert language used in the CEP PPA for the CEP delivery plan stage 2 language and language regarding transmission delays. Public service opposes CIEA's request to direct the company to use the model PPA from the NTP RFP and not allow public service to make edits based on the JTS. Public service cites language from the motion to initiate the NTP as well as the NTP RFP to support its position that both IPPs and the company will be able to negotiate changes to the model PPAs used in the NTP, including changes from the JTS. And I'll stop here unless you would like my recommendation.
I would like your recommendation.
Okay. Advisors again agree with public service and recommend rejecting CIEA's request. Public service and the IPP interest, including CIEA, agreed at the outset of the NTP to allow negotiations and not to attempt to implement a conforming bid policy. It would be difficult at this point for the Commission to change course and rule that certain requests to modify the model PPAs are prohibited if they appear too similar to the JTS PPAs.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman?
I also agree.
As do I.
Thank you. Going back to the motion to initiate the NTP, that motion stated that NTP projects could be eligible for future price relief up to 15% based on tariffs or other federal actions occurring after their bid date. In its reply, the company confirms that under its proposed approach, the 15% stage 2 relief is available for NTP projects. And here, advisors note that no parties oppose this proposal, and we recommend the Commission expressly approve this approach so that the company and bidders have clarity during the PPA negotiations.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman?
I also agree.
As do I.
All right. In the NTP report, Public Service proposes that company-owned projects would be subject to the cost to construct performance incentive mechanism, or PIM, the operational PIM, and the availability PIM as applicable, consistent with the structure approved in proceeding number 24A-0417E. In its reply comments associated with its proposal to waive the CPCN requirement, Public Service offers that upon approval of the NTP portfolio, the company could file the relevant PIM information into this proceeding, paired with a CPCN waiver from the Commission. And on this point, advisors recommend the Commission expressly require that all company-owned projects arising from the NTP be subject to the CTC PIM, the operational PIM, and the availability PIM as applicable. That the Commission should also accept the company's offer and direct it to file the relevant PIM information in this proceeding after the approval of the NTP portfolio. The Commission should reiterate the baseline for the respective PIMs shall be based on the NTP bids unless the company can show to the Commission's satisfaction the existence of extraordinary circumstances.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree.
Commissioner Gilman?
I also agree.
As do I.
Okay. Public Service requests that Rule 3617D's presumption of prudence attached to all implementation actions that are consistent with the approved portfolio, including actions consistent with the approved backup bid or Tier 2 process, And here, advisors recommend granting this request, which appears to be unopposed and is consistent with the Commission's standard ERP practices.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gellman,
I also agree.
as do I.
Moving to CPCNs, after the company filed the motion to initiate the NTP and after filing the NTP report, Public Service requested the Commission waive the CPCN requirement for company-owned projects so long as the projects remain at the as-bid cost level for CPCN and cost to construct PIM purposes. Alternatively, Public Service asks the Commission to grant CPCNs for the Tier 1 projects in its decision, subject to a condition or requirement that capital costs remain at as-bid levels. In response to the NTP report, Conservation Coalition states it does not object to the company's request to waive the CPCN requirement. In its reply, Public Service notes agreement with Conservation Coalition's position to waive the CPCN requirement. The company argues this approach may speed negotiations and contract execution, keep project development costs at as-bid cost, and facilitate timely development and in-servicing. And I'll pause here unless you would like my recommendation.
Recommendation, please.
Advisors recommend denying the company's request to waive the CPCN requirement, as well as arguments to commit at this time to an expedited procedural schedule. Eliminating the long-standing CPCN requirement here could have unintended consequences and appears unnecessary. If the company is able to bring its projects forward at their as-bid price, the relevant stakeholders will likely agree to an expedited schedule and possibly settle. This is what occurred in the Rocky Mountain Arroyo 2 CPCN case. Advisors oppose suggestions from Public Service that waiving the CPCN requirement may be necessary to keep project development costs at as-bid cost and facilitate timely development. The company cannot argue that the CODs and pricing of its NTP bids are contingent on the Commission's waiving the CPCN requirement. The company submitted its NTP report prior to requesting that the Commission waive the CPCN requirement. In addition, it's unclear what the for CPCN and cost to construct PIM purposes means. Advisors worry that the company may unilaterally decide that a CPCN is unnecessary if it determines that there are extraordinary circumstances.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gellman,
I also agree.
as do I.
Thank you. Moving to cost recovery, the NTP report proposes that cost recovery for PPAs and owned renewable projects will commence upon each project's COD through the ECA until rolled into base rates, consistent with the traditional treatment. However, the company also proposes that cost recovery for dispatchable projects, such as standalone and thermal, will commence upon each project's COD through the PCCA. In support of this accelerated cost recovery, the NTP report cites a settlement agreement in proceeding number 24A-0417E, addressing projects arising from the 2021 ERP. And here, advisors recommend expressly granting the accelerated cost recovery of PPA and company-owned renewable projects through the ECA as has historically been done. Conversely, we recommend the Commission deny the company's request for accelerated cost recovery of company-owned dispatchable projects such as storage and thermal. Public Service has failed to establish why such projects should be afforded this different treatment. The settlement agreement in proceeding number 24A-0417E was not intended to cover NTP projects.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Gellman,
I also agree.
as do I.
Thank you. COSACIA strongly suggests that the company be required to provide monthly updates on the status of offtake contract negotiations. They warn that Colorado cannot afford to repeat the lengthy delays in executing contracts, and that monthly reporting will help encourage time discipline for both Public Service and IPPs. And here, advisors recommend adopting COSACIA's request and adopting the monthly negotiation reports. Advisors note the company proposed similar reporting in the JTS. Advisors further suggest the Commission direct that negotiations regarding the option payments for bid 0134, the PPA thermal project, be included in the monthly negotiation reports.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Goman,
I also agree.
as do I.
So I believe this is the last issue for today. In the NTP motion, Public Service asks that the Commission approve the deferral of costs associated with the NTP and the ongoing deferral in this proceeding, and consistent with the unopposed deferral request approved by the Commission in the JTS. The company states that all deferred NTP costs will be evaluated in a future rate proceeding and do not carry a presumption of prudence. Advisors recommend the Commission grant the company's request and allow it to defer the expenses associated with adjudicating the NTP motion in a non-interest bearing account. The costs will be evaluated in a future rate proceeding and do not carry a presumption of prudence.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree.
Commissioner Goman,
I also agree.
as do I. Mr. Eden, what are you thinking for the order? I wonder if this needs to be TBC, but we can't delay this in any way.
Well, something that one option the Commission has, I think, and Council can jump on if I'm wrong, but the one possibility is to issue one decision quickly, directing that additional analysis be conducted, and then a subsequent NTP or TBC decision that addresses all of the other decision points and has more of the policy.
Do you want to give the company authority to move forward on the tier 1 projects that are approved? So in the shorter order, request the analysis and approve the I don't know what you call it, no-brainer projects, and then do the larger order on everything else. So at least they can get started.
Well, I believe in the NTP initiation motion, they request a written decision by February 9th. And that might be doable for the longer TBC
right.
decision.
Are you going to do the analysis decision as TBC?
We could, yeah. I think as long as that one can issue within the next week, that gives us a little bit more time to get all the other decision points in the bigger decision done.
Commissioner Plant, you okay with that?
Yep, sounds good.
Commissioner Gilman?
Yeah, just so I understand, so your analysis decision will request the calculations for basically cost sensitivity around the Denver metro area constraint for that whole set of projects that we ran through, as well as information about the constraint as it relates to especially like those solar plus storage and storage bids. I know there was a separate piece around wind bid 127, rely upon that future modeling expected in early April. Will you address both in that one, or you're just thinking that initial sensitivities around the Denver metro constraint?
Mr. Eden?
I think the directive regarding the April model could be included in the larger decision. It's really just the analysis that's due. I forget the exact timeline, but I think it's in 2 or 3 weeks is what the Commission decided. I'll have to go back, but it's that quicker analysis that I think should be in this first decision, and then the April 2nd modeling would be in the decision that will target issuing on February 9th.
Okay, yeah, sorry, don't mean to put you on the spot. I know you are a busy man with at least 3 ERPs ongoing at the same time. But I just want, so we knew what to expect and kind of those following along at home in the office know what to expect. I'm not sure we did set a time expectation for that, like cost sensitivity around the Denver Metro constraint and information about the constraint issue. I think we expressed, it seems like information that reasonably exists and could just be delivered within a few weeks. But I mean, I think 2 or 3 weeks works for me. I don't know, Mr. Eden, if you had the impression we set.
I have a suggestion. Let advisors think about it overnight, and we'll work it out in a TBC process, which I will commit to turn quickly. Would that work for you, Commissioner Gilman?
Yeah, I mean, I expect it's just a couple to a few weeks, but wasn't sure if we had actually stated the amount.
Commissioner Plant?
Yeah, that works.
All right, so it sounds like 2 orders, maybe both are TBC, but the first one will get out quickly, and I think the 3 of us commit to processing it quickly. Does that give you what you need, Mr. Eden?
I think so. So I believe that the commission kind of reached a tentative deadline for 3 weeks for this additional modeling, and the exact details will be worked out in the TBC process.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I believe that gives me what I need.
Thanks to you. Thanks to the team, Mr. Greenberg, for giving us the spreadsheet, walking through each bid and how it sums up. Really appreciate you guys, and really appreciate the parties and the company for moving this process. I think Colorado is leading the way. I know there's going to be some disappointment with the delay, but I mean, it's just billions of dollars at stake, and we're all doing the best we can. So with that, anything else, Commissioner Plant?
Nothing further. Thanks a lot.
Commissioner Gilman?
No, nothing additional. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.